Yeah, no, a great article from the Argument magazine. Kyla Scanlon writes about what happens to college towns after peak 18-year-olds. So we are hitting, really interestingly, this demographic cliff in the United States of America, where we had peak 18-year-olds. That means there are going to be fewer and fewer 18-year-olds in the next few years. And that means this author is positing and citing some really good data that maybe the college town ecosystem collapses. I know you went to college up in New Haven. We won't say where, but how reliant is that town on the schools over there, right? And then as we think about these changing things, we have changing ecosystem around it, right? We saw this with as manufacturing declined that decimated towns in America, right? So it is not just about, it's fun to bully and make fun of the elite students who, they're not going to go to school. There is a lot of hardworking, working class people that are around the ecosystem of these things, and we can't just leave them behind. We have to think about them. So we need these institutional and kind of policy responses as communities, as cities, towns, states, maybe even the federal government, right? I don't know what the right answer is to help mitigate so we don't just repeat the crises that happen with manufacturing where we have decimation. I think we agree that decimation isn't good. That's not just the market working. We need to make sure for our own kind of peace and stability that we have a better kind of repurposing, making tech hubs, vocational training. I don't know, all those buzzwords that, politicians love to say and then don't follow through on. But we need to figure out something here because it is not just fun to watch the colleges burn. Sure, everyone can make fun of that, but it is the whole ecosystem around it that I think is threat.
Yeah, it's not just about cheering as the colleges burn, although I do think there is certainly a correction needed in higher education and the bloated cost of higher education as the American taxpayer has basically subsidized the oversaturation of the administration of these universities as we've funded, basically no restriction student loans that continue to allow these universities to just continue to get more and more and more expensive without actually delivering consummate increase in return on investment. Here's what this means, I think, to me, Ben, is it's another example. We are standing at the precipice of this massive labor disruption in this country. We're already seeing it. There's some stuff that's been going on, I don't know if it's AI. I don't know if it's still COVID. It's probably a little bit of this and a lot of things all together mixed in one. Our economy is not really back where it's been in terms of jobs. I'm not talking about the stock market. I'm not talking about foreign trade. I'm just talking about jobs. You see it, highly educated people, even, folks who are used to, jumping from job to job, they're spending 6, 12, 18 months out of work looking for things and even in tech industries and finance and industries where there's usually opportunity for folks who have that experience. Even at the high end, at the low end, it's even worse, right? And so what we are standing at this moment of change, where I think the United States has always relied on the institutions of higher education to generate economic pivots, to allow people to move from one thing to another, whether that's graduate school or frankly undergraduate, but to move socioeconomic classes, to change their professions, their careers, their jobs. And we're going to have to do something a little bit different here because that's not going to work in exactly the same way. If I move a job and I'm 37, I'm probably not going to go back and get another 2-year degree. I'm certainly not going to go get back and get another 4-year degree. More and more people are going to bypass those 4-year degrees. And that's actually, I think, okay, because those schools are not purpose fit for every job. That's always been the case, but there was this cultural dynamic that everybody should go get a 4-year degree. So the question, I think, is how are we as a country preparing to meet this need, which is rapidly reskilling, upskilling, supporting the transition of our workforce? It ties very back to the first conversation we had here, which is if the U.S. is going to rapidly reindustrialize, things like trade schools and certificate programs, they're a part of it. They're a part of it, but part of it is also identifying people who are most likely to be impacted by some of this stuff and then supporting them, making sure they have access to some of these things at that right moment so that they don't despair, so that they don't become reliant on a welfare system, so that they don't lose agency in their own lives. And I don't think this is, frankly, going to be the providence entirely of the government, of a state, local, or federal government. I think this is going to be about Entrepreneurship, this is going to be about, rent-seeking individuals who understand that this labor force is an immense opportunity. If we're going to build huge factories, if we're going to enrich materials here in the United States, if we're going to refine rare earth minerals, that takes a different kind of labor force than what we have today. And so finding ways to put these good folks to work and to get them trained up and ready to be productive members of these teams is going to be a massive opportunity, not just an obligation. So I think there's some excitement there, but it's going to take some work.